Calvin Graber, welcome to the Security Equation. It's so great to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
So now you're Senior Vice President of Business Integration at Stratoscope. Tell us a little bit about your role and what you do for Stratoscope.
Yeah, so my role at Stratoscope is really to make sure that all of our different service offerings are working together, looking at new ways that we can kind of future-proof what we do and make sure that the company is providing the best service that we can to our clients.
It's been a 5-year journey, right? You started out, you ran the whole consulting division, and it's grown. You've built a consulting practice to where you've got some of the top clients in the world. How did you get here? Tell us a little bit about your road to being in the industry leader in the event security space.
Yeah, I really grew up in the industry. And I say that because my father, who really got me into the industry, was the head of security for the staffing company that supported San Francisco 49ers events at Candlestick Park. I was a kid, huge sports fan. So whenever I could go into work with my dad and be at the stadium, help him out doing laundry for uniforms or checking out radios, I would jump on that opportunity because it was great. Yeah. San Francisco 49ers, my hometown team when I was growing up, still my favorite team in the NFL. And I just always had a love for sports. As I was going through college, was playing college football, tore my ACL twice, had to hang up the cleats, and I'm like, what do I do now? And that's when I started working in security. Once I turned 18, I got my guard card, started working at the stadium, and that's really when I caught the event bug, I guess you could say. And just continued to work in the industry. I've done a lot of different things as it relates to events, venue management, consulting work. When I got connected with you, and I've kind of done every position that you have at an event, whether it's being a ticket taker, being an ops guy that's moving barricade and bike rack and all the different things that makes an event happen. So that's kind of led me to where I am now. And it's been an amazing journey kind of building Stratoscope to what it is now.
It's quite the journey because I joke, I know your father, of course,
sure.
and I joke about, you might have been 8, 9, 10 years old when you were checking out radios for his company then. But you've had some really unique assignments because I think you've also escorted some of the top talent around the Super Bowl.
Sure.
For just an odd. Give us one of those stories.
Yeah. So actually, if you go on Netflix and you look at Lady Gaga's, I think it's 5'2" documentary, you'll see me escorting her across the field, getting hooked into the harness when she went up to the rafters of NRG Stadium at whatever Super Bowl number it was. Right. But I've done 10 Super Bowls. It's been really interesting seeing kind of what an event of that magnitude happen, or what happens in an event like that. But it's cool interacting with some of those talent. I mean, Lady Gaga, Jay-Z, Beyonce, yeah. All of those talent, working with them. It's interesting because you get a perspective of the performer and, yeah. and the talent themselves and what they have to go through to do their job. And it gives you a really all-encompassing view of what events are and why it's so important to have what we do, that security element and that strategic element too, to make sure that the fans aren't acting crazy. Because I'll tell you, when I was I was actually running Beyonce off of the field after her halftime performance at Super Bowl 50, we had a couple thousand kids that all sprinted right. to try to, chase her off the field and just to be close to her.
Yeah.
And when you look at fame at that, magnitude, it's really eye-opening. Yeah. And a testament to why you need security professionals to make sure that they're safe.
But it 100%. And it also pulls together the whole variety of different aspects of event security.
Yeah.
Because you could be at a major event, a Super Bowl, and never see a performance or a play.
Absolutely.
Because you're out there on that perimeter keeping it safe.
Yeah.
From the early hours till the late hours.
Oh,
right.
Yeah.
And we have people that end up in those roles and never see the interior of the event space.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting. So coming back to where you are today, a 5-year execution of a plan to really be the top provider of event security in the industry. And now you're senior vice president. It's been a very interesting road, I'm sure. Talk about a little bit about the last 5 years and how it's changed and what your focus, where the direction is now.
Yeah, I mean, when we first started off with Stratoscope, we all kind of were doing everything. And over the evolution of these past 5 years, as you mentioned, it's really been me changing what I do on the day-to-day, trusting the team to be able to do the job and execute on the structure that we've built, the processes, the procedures, and then take a different approach of what's next. How do we get better? Right. How do we provide better service for our clients? And that's really my focus on the day-to-day now, which is looking at what the team's doing, and they're all doing phenomenal work. But how can they get better? And how can we set the team up to be able to do their job a little bit easier, be a little bit more efficient, and do a better job for our clients at the end of the day?
We're going to come back to some of those topics that I do want to touch on. Let's look at the last 12 months. We're coming up on, we're a year from the United Healthcare CEO being murdered in New York City. We've had a Charlie Kirk at a university rally. We've had New Year's Eve, New Orleans, New Year's Eve, Las Vegas, or New Year's Day, I guess it was. How are you addressing the challenges that the world is seeing as you're putting events on in today's climate? Yeah,
it really, the threats are coming from everywhere. And what we need to do is look at not just the perimeter that you have and how do you defend whatever space it is, but what are the gaps in that where a bad guy can try to take advantage of, the posture that you have in place. Yep. So things like line of sight into an event space or into a queue that is part of an entrance are things that we're looking at. Any vulnerabilities, because as we've seen with the incidents that you mentioned, the risk is out there, and now we've got to kind of put the hat of the bad guy on and think like that so that we can try to address any possible risk that's out there and protect the attendees. Right. Because, you list out all those incidents, and that's something that I never want to have happen at one of our events. Right. So it's constantly looking at where the vulnerabilities are. How can you shore that up, and making sure that, we as the provider that's developed, that's executing, the plan, not only we are comfortable with it, but also the clients and all of the different stakeholders in these events, that they're comfortable with the risk based off of what that plan is. Because at the end of the day, it hits a budget somewhere. Somebody's got to pay for the security posture that we're developing. But there's business decisions that are made, that sort of thing, and with that comes risk.
It's pushing that perimeter further out, and whether it's a perimeter that is fully defended and clean, or that perimeter of just where the guest, the ticket holder, the attendee has to travel through to get from a hotel, from a parking lot, all unsecured spaces, right? And then the whole vehicle issue, right? Because we've seen that the vehicle is the easiest weapon.
Absolutely.
The easiest item to weaponize.
Yeah.
And do tremendous damage. And so it's taking that much broader look. Talk specifically about the real challenges, like the Charlie Kirk scenario.
Yeah, crazy.
They thought they had security. They probably thought they had a plan.
Yeah, which they probably had security and they probably had a plan, but they didn't look at all those risks that I was talking about before, which, in an outdoor open environment without a perimeter, with lots of lines of sight to the stage, to the person, that is controversial. You got to be thinking about a lot of different things in that scenario, and I don't think that they thought about enough things, unfortunately.
You talked about budget a little while ago, and look, the Charlie Kirk thing is tragic, and it should never take place in any scenario ever. I don't care where you are.
Yeah.
That tour goes to campuses for that individual to have access to the crowd.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that they looked at, we don't want it to feel like there's a massive security. We've had clients years ago that felt that way. that didn't want that visual appearance. What do you do in that scenario? How would you go back and change and say, this is what we have to do if we're going to have a setting like this with a name like that?
Yeah.
And it's not just executive protection standing in the tent.
At that point, it's the venue selection itself. And having a security voice in that discussion that's thinking about, okay, we're in an open plaza here.
Yep.
There are no walls, there are no defendable boundaries, if you will. And that's where the venue selection piece is where it needs to start. And it's the importance, and something that we fight a lot for on the Stratoscope side of things, is to engage us when you're making some of those decisions about where you're going to be holding your event. Because you're kind of, in a really bad position if you're just going into an open plaza. You've got no perimeter because that's the field that you want it to be. Maybe you look at moving that indoors. There's plenty of campus spaces that are inside of a building so that you can have some sort of a checkpoint as folks are coming in, funneling those folks into that event space where if you don't want to do something overt as weapons detection, you can still be looking at the items that folks are bringing in, doing some counter surveillance in that regard. There's a lot of things that can be done, but it starts with the venue selection.
Shortly after that incident, you were the lead at a major event in San Francisco. Yeah. And video surveillance is great. There's a lot of great tools out there. Talk about, what led you to the idea, the ultimate solution, to use technology to scan those rooftops and make sure you didn't have that sort of that risk at an outdoor event.
Well, at that event in San Francisco, the perimeter inside of the building's very easy to defend. Glass walls and that sort of thing, which is not great, but it's still something. The street closure that we have is the biggest area of risk because we've got 40,000 attendees that are coming in and out of that space, and most of them have to go through that exterior the path of travel to wherever they're going to go. So, again, I kind of put the hat of the bad guy on and said, if I wanted to do damage, what would I do? And I looked around on Google Earth at all of the different buildings surrounding that perimeter. And I said, wow, that's a lot of windows and there's a lot of rooftops. How can we try to increase our posture so we got some visibility on what's going on, at least on the rooftops and maybe the windows as well? And that's what led me down the path to thinking about how can we use analytics, because we're not going to have law enforcement or private security knocking on every door, searching every room. That's just not realistic for this event.
Right.
And it goes back to the event that we did at Formula One in 2023, the inaugural race here in Las Vegas, because that was one of the things that law enforcement was looking at.
Right.
They said, we've got X number of hotel rooms that have line of sight to the track and to the different venues that are activated there.
All the fan zones.
And all the fan zones, exactly.
Right.
And especially in Las Vegas with October 1, that's certainly something that they think about.
For sure.
So that's, kind of the genesis of that idea. But the technology that's really coming out right now and getting better every day can provide some solutions where you're not just having to field a team of 100 guards or cops or what have you to check hotel rooms.
Yeah, it's harder and harder to get the manpower, so we've got to start using the technology and the analytics more and more.
Exactly.
Speaking of which, today the U.S. House actually passed a bill that it's going to go to the Senate to allow, for the first time, local and state law enforcement to interrupt the communication and take down drones.
Which is huge.
How has the drone thing been, especially for outdoor events and stadiums, and where do you see this going, and what's next on this anti-drone topic? Yeah,
I mean, if you look at what's going on in Russia and Ukraine with the drone attacks that are have been weaponized and are being utilized in war. That's what we got to be thinking about, because we're worried about a lot of different topics from a drone standpoint. But it's great to see that we're now empowering local, state law enforcement to be able to do something about that, because the technologies are out there. It's just they don't have permission to do something about that if a drone that's we don't know what it is, enters the airspace of one of these events, that's a huge risk. And now that drones are becoming bombs, we really got to take that a little bit more seriously. It's certainly something that keeps me up at night, and I know a lot of other security professionals are terrified of what could happen when a drone goes up over hundreds, thousands of their attendees.
Yeah, we talked about the vehicle being the low cost weapon.
Yeah,
$500 drone, it really becomes the low cost weapon.
Exactly.
This topic has been at the forefront of the stadium industry for, I can't remember how many years we've been talking about this, and it being only a federal law enforcement capability to interrupt that FCC communication.
Right.
It's huge. It's timely. It feels like it's taken forever to get here.
Right.
That's government, but it's great. And hopefully the Senate passes it, and these local law enforcement communities can actually get that technology.
And hopefully it gets expanded to all mass gatherings that are outdoors, because whether it's a sporting event or a conference or a concert, the risk is still there.
Right.
And it's great to see some movement in the right direction. I just think there needs to be more.
So coming back to your role now at Stratoscope, you talk about some of the clients that you're working with, and where do you go from here? 5 years in, you talked about getting the team ready and building the broader team and keeping that deliverable at a very high level. How do you scale and meet the demands of some of the clients that you're working with today?
Yeah, well, a lot of our clients are in the tech space. And with that, they are looking at where they can leverage technology for all of their events, everything that they do, really. And that's the direction that we're trying to go as well, is how can we deliver at that high level you mentioned, do it more effectively, do it more efficiently, so that technology can be helping our team do the best job that they possibly can, and do it a little bit easier, because at the end of the day, everything takes time and energy, and if we can leverage that technology to make it easier for everybody, we absolutely should. And that's what our clients are looking for us to do. So we want to be on the forefront of developing and utilizing new solutions that allows us to do the best job we can for them and move the industry forward, because technology is moving very quickly and we don't want to be left behind.
For sure.
Yeah.
What kind of solutions do you see? Because look, planning is planning, right? You can only do so much. But we've been sometimes, maybe we're not thinking broad enough. Maybe we're too focused on this is how it's always been done. So where do you see technology really helping in the event security, planning, and delivery?
At the end of the day, if it's historically taken 10 hours to do a task, but we can do it in one, that means we can continue to provide additional services to our clients and really hone in on the more difficult challenges. And we're not just dealing with the logistical, tedious tasks that we're doing. So that's the approach that our team's really taking, is like, what are those tedious tasks? What can we automate? What can we do more efficiently if we're building a system to accomplish that? Whether it's scheduling hotel rooms, building out a dot map of where all of the resources we're bringing to bear for those events, that's what we're looking at on the planning phase. And then when it comes to the delivery and empowering the staff members that we're either bringing in for the event, that we're fielding ourselves, it's all about how can we make it as simple for them to do their job as possible, arming them with information so that they don't need to remember a 10-page booklet of facts for the event. They can ask an AI type of a tool. There's a lot of ways that we can make their jobs easier, and that's what we're looking at right now. And it's really exciting, because going back to your question of like my journey in this industry, I remember when I was a security guard and I would get a big pamphlet of information, and I wanted to do the best job I could, so I'd read through it and I try to commit it to memory. And then somebody walks up to you, asks you a question, you're trying to remember what the answer was, and another person comes up with something completely different. It's a lot for the frontline staff that are, in a lot of cases, one of the only people that are interacting with these attendees. How can we arm them with the right information so that they're not stressed out just trying to remember what they heard in a 30-minute briefing 3 hours ago?
And allow your client experience team, your leads, to get out of the planning minutia. And I would imagine then they can spend more time on the strategy, the contingencies, the what ifs,
absolutely,
to better prepare their teams for anything that might happen on site.
Yeah. If you're tied up in the minutia of working through these tedious logistical tasks, you're not thinking about the broader risks that are out there and thinking through all of the different things that need to happen for us to have a really ironclad plan.
Right.
So if we can automate some of that stuff and make sure that, our professionals are focused on the big picture risks, big picture challenges that are out there for us to solve, I think it's just going to continue to allow us to provide that really high level of service to all of our clients.
It takes me back. I can't remember who I should credit this quote with, but long time ago, you're either working in it or you're working on it. And if you're 100%. Stuck in the minutia of planning, you're working in it. Yeah. And trying to elevate and get, our leads to be able to work on it and utilizing technology to help reduce that working in it time frame.
It's so important.
So important, because we've seen big events where we've had big challenges, and being able to react quickly is the best way to. That's the measure of success
at the end of the day. Yeah, you got to be able to see the forest through the trees.
Yeah.
And when you're working in it, like you mentioned, you're not thinking about all the other things that are going on. And you bring up another good point about the reaction of it. When we're not bogged down with the logistical, tedious tasks of planning an event, that's when we can really bring in all the stakeholders and talk through, okay, what's our incident management plan going to be? What's our crisis management plan? How are we going to communicate? How are we going to build the framework of a plan so that when a curveball happens, and they all pretty much always do.
It's event
Let's
industry.
Just be real. Yeah,
it's the event
industry. That we're prepared to act and respond to whatever that is. We might not know exactly what the answer is, but having the right people at the table really quickly, that structure in place to solve it, those are the types of things that we need to be spending a lot of that planning time on, as opposed to working through spreadsheets and whatever the case may be.
Right.
Like that takes a lot of time to develop those relationships with those stakeholders.
Yeah. What would be the dream event or the dream client for Calvin Graber?
That's a tough one. I've done Super Bowls, World Series. I think on the sports side, I've done a lot of them. I haven't done a World Cup. I think that would be pretty cool to be a part of one of those, just with how international it is. Soccer was my first sport. I'm more of a football guy, American football. But I think the World Cup would be pretty cool. Yeah,
it's a huge one.
Yeah,
I mean, given the footprint of the World Cup, it's coming up. It's North America, i.e., U.S., Canada, Mexico. It's so many different venues, so many games, so many teams, so many fan zones. Huge lift.
Absolutely.
But if you were going to do a World Cup, what role would you want to be in? Do you want to be the venue manager of a World Cup stadium?
Well, I've done venue management, and it's not all that fun. There's there's a lot you got to do with that. So
what's the role?
Yeah, I would like to be on the strategic side of that, and really looking at how are they developing a plan so that the organizers are able to respond to multiple incidents across venues, making sure that everything's happening the right way. When we first launched Stratoscope, we helped the NCAA out with their COVID championships. We actually got boots on the ground at 256 events across all of the divisions and all of the sports of the NCAA. And we developed an operations center at the NCAA's headquarters where we were monitoring all of the testing that was taking place, overseeing the COVID operations, if you will.
Right.
And we going back to what I was saying before, we were able to develop that framework so we could solve any of the challenges that came up in real time. And it was a lot of time in a room monitoring a lot of different events, but I feel like there should be something like that going on for the World Cup. And
of course,
it would be good to be in a role like that, because having that functionality ensures that each of those events are taking place.
Yeah.
It's going off without a hitch, and there's going to be challenges, but you're able to solve them in real time and make sure that the athletes are able to play at the end of the day. And that was really the most rewarding experience for me, being a part of that endeavor with the NCAA.
256 events in like 4 months.
Yeah.
It was a Herculean task.
Yeah.
I don't even know if that's the right word.
Absolutely.
Last question. Of all of the pieces of the security puzzle, what's the one that you enjoy working with the most? Right? To build that posture, you've got staffing, you've got ops center, you've got video surveillance, you got canine, you've got vehicle mitigation. What's the one you like working with the most? And what's the most pain in the rear end part of the security posture that you have to deal with?
Yeah, it's a tough question to answer because I've done pretty much all of those things throughout my career. You know, I have an appreciation for each one. You know, when it starts with being a frontline staff member and you're really in that experience and you're, helping make sure that the attendees are having a good time and you're doing whatever that one function is. As of late, just with my role, I spend most of my time in the ops center, which is great when there's a lot of things happening, but there's not always things happening, and sometimes It can drag on a bit. But for me, when it comes to an event, I like being a part of it. And back when I was in the music industry, my favorite thing was being in the barricade and making sure that attendees aren't flying over when they're crowd surfing or anything like that. But standing there and looking out at 50,000 people just having the time of their life and making sure that the artist behind you is on stage having a great time, like that's one of those moments where you're like, wow, my job's pretty cool.
Yeah, but you're a young guy now. You were a younger guy then.
Yeah.
You gonna go stand in the pit now?
I wouldn't mind it. Probably not every day, but if I can get in there once a year, that'd be pretty cool.
All right, I said it was the last question. I'm going to give you one more.
Okay.
All-time best favorite event memory. Might have been standing in the barricade.
That's up there. All-time favorite memory for an event. I'm going to answer that with this. At the end of the race, when the broadcast ended for Formula One Las Vegas, the inaugural race, when that broadcast ended and I could take a deep sigh of relief that nothing terrible happened and we got through it and the race was successful. We got through that experience. That was probably one of my favorite memories because for me personally, like that probably stretched me as a professional more than any event had. Yeah. I was in it every day for 6 months, every day. The planning took almost a year. But at the end of that race, when the fireworks went off and the broadcast ended, all the interviews were done, and we could sit back in our chairs and say, we did it. That was pretty special.
That's a pretty awesome one.
Yeah.
Calvin Graber, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you, Dan.
Really enjoyed it. Thank you.